evening. Good evening and welcome to the Wednesday, February 25th, 2026 Lawrence Metropolitan Douglas County Planning Commission meeting. Before we get started, I will turn it over to Becky Pepper to give us the rules of the game.
Thank you very much, Chair, and good evening, everyone. Please silence your cell phones to minimize distraction during the meeting. When the Chair calls for public comment, please approach the podium to indicate you wish to speak. Virtual participants should use the raise hand function to indicate that they wish to speak during public comment. Once your name is called, please unmute and turn on your camera to provide your comments. Please state your name before speaking. The city reserves the right to turn videos off or mute participants. All comments will be limited to 3 minutes. The primary format to access and participate in this meeting is in person at City Hall. Virtual access to view or participate in the meeting cannot be guaranteed. The chat function will not be monitored. If you have any trouble, the meeting can be viewed on the city's YouTube channel and cable channel 25.
Thank you, Becky. At this time, we will receive or entertain any kind of motion to approve the minutes from our January 28th, 2026 meeting.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor of approving the minutes, raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, so motion passes. We'll move on to committee reports. Is there a report from the Douglas County, or the Lawrence Douglas County Metropolitan Planning Organization Policy Board? Commissioner Thomas, are you able to? Yeah, it's great to see you on Zoom. Do you have a report?
I find this an interesting little way. I've only done this one other time.
Well, we're honored.
We did have an MPO meeting, and I will say Jessica Mortinger does a great job of laying everything out. There was a transportation improvement program amendment where we looked at about 10 or 12 different projects from safe rides to school to streets and approved those and looked at how much it was going to cost. Bill was there also.
Great. Commissioner Wilson, do you have anything to add?
I do not. That was my first meeting. It was a good introduction, but I don't have any further comments.
Okay, great. Well, we appreciate both of you representing us on those on that board. And was there a meeting or any report from the North Lawrence Comprehensive Corridor Study?
Yes, both Commissioner Hayden and I attended that, and it was the task force met, and we looked at developing vision statements and value statements from all of the open houses and from the internet survey that had been compiled by the consultants. I do not have the written results of those. I think the consultants are working on those, and although I had asked for copies, they were not yet available. But I would say we are moving forward, and then the consultants are going to be coming back to the public and asking for more input, more comment. And that North Lawrence corridor area, as you may remember, includes not just the North Lawrence we think of in terms of 2nd Street, but it also includes a good chunk of Grant Township and the airport and the property in between. So it's an interesting and exciting part of Lawrence and Douglas County, and I hope that everyone will pay attention to the next segment of opportunity to talk about it.
And I would just add that we don't have documents yet that brought together the vision statement and the goals, but they will be posted on, there's a specific website through the, is it through planning or through the county or through the city that's dedicated specifically to this corridor study, and it has a bunch of information, and this will all be posted on that website.
It is through the city. It's through the project's website, which you can get to from the lawrenceks.gov homepage, but that will be updated as soon as they get the material available.
Great, thank you. At this time, we will receive communications. Are there any written communications from the public?
All written communications received by the deadline were included as part of your packet this evening.
Have there been any written communications from staff, planning commissioners, or other commissioners?
None this evening.
All right. Do we have any written action of waiver, request, or determinations made by the city engineer?
Also none this evening.
Okay. And so we'll turn to our disclosure of ex parte communications. Does anyone have ex parte communications to disclose this evening? Okay. There declaration of any abstentions from any specific item on the agenda this evening? Seeing none. So at this point, we will turn to general public comment, and this is where we will take comment from anyone of the public that is here to speak on an item that is not on our agenda this evening. So if you're here to speak on an agenda item, we will get to public comment with each agenda item. So at the moment, if you have anything to present to us or any public comment that's not connected to an agenda item, please come to the podium and state your name, and we will be glad to take your public comment. Not even any of the college students who are here for extra credit? All right. So with that, then we will move on to our regular agenda items. And we will begin with considering a variance request for section anyway, Avery will tell us all about our variance request for item number 1.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Avery Kerner. I'm a Planner 2 with the Planning Division. Then this first item before you this evening is a variance request from the minimum right-of-way standards of the subdivision regulations. And this request is related to a minor subdivision application that is under administrative review for a lot line adjustment between 2803 and 2807 Tomahawk Drive. This shows the location for the minor subdivision application, as well as the right-of-way for the existing cul-de-sac adjacent to the properties. Minor subdivisions are administratively reviewed, and one of the minor subdivision review criteria looks at the amount of right-of-way adjacent to the properties, and if the existing right-of-way does not meet the minimum right-of-way standards in the subdivision regulations, then the review criteria dictates that the subdivider shall dedicate through the minor subdivision process 1/2 the minimum right-of-way necessary to bring the right-of-way up to standard. So in this case, the adjacent cul-de-sac does not meet the minimum right-of-way standard. The standards require 60 feet of right-of-way measured from the center of the paved bulb of the cul-de-sac, and the existing cul-de-sac only has 50 feet of right-of-way. So the applicant is requesting that the Planning Commission approve a variance from the minimum right-of-way standards so that additional right-of-way does not need to be dedicated for this minor subdivision application to be administratively approved. The subdivision regulations give the Planning Commission the authority to grant variances from the regulations, and on the screen are 3 review criteria that are used to evaluate whether to grant a variance request. This evening's agenda packet includes a memo from staff that provides an analysis of the request with these review criteria, and the finding from staff is that the request meets all 3 criteria for approval. The city engineer also typically weighs in on the review of these types of variance requests, and in this instance, they have communicated that they are in support of approval of the variance because there aren't any plans to reconstruct the paved bulb of the cul-de-sac if additional right-of-way were to be dedicated. So the recommendation for this item is to approve the variance request, and I would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Avery. Does the applicant have anything they want to add for the presentation this evening? If not, we'll turn to public comment. Is there anyone here to give public comment on this item this evening? Online? All right, then we'll bring it back to the commission for discussion and vote. Any discussion?
I had a question. Maybe the 2 addresses that are provided here, are they 2 new buildings that are going to be built on that cul-de-sac?
No, one of the properties has an existing single detached dwelling. The other one is vacant, It is a buildable lot, but what the minor subdivision application is doing is readjusting the lot line that separates the two. And so one of the lots, the northern lot, is going to become a little bit smaller, but it will still remain a buildable lot.
Right. That cul-de-sac looked huge to me, so I didn't see any reason to want to try to make it even bigger. And so I certainly am in support of this.
Any other discussions or a motion?
Make a motion if you want. Move to approve the variance request from section 20-1110E5I of the subdivision regulations for Clemente Hill Addition minor subdivision located at 2803 and 2807 Tomahawk Drive to reduce the minimum right-of-way width required for cul-de-sac from 60 feet to 50 feet.
Is there a second? Great. Did you get that? Okay. Any further discussion? I think I would just like to say this seems like one of the things we always kind of talk about undue hardship, and that's really difficult kind of sometimes with the variance. And this is the kind of thing to me that seems like, it's my understanding, this is kind of what's meant by that there it would create an undue hardship because there's no way to really make it all uniform with how it's already been or how, what any plans are for in the future. So to me, this meets that definition quite clearly. And I just, even though it might seem really obvious, I think it's important to state it because there are times in which we have more of a conversation about what is and isn't. So I just. Any further discussion or comments? No. All those in favor of the motion, raise your hand. Say aye.
Right?
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, motion passes. And we will move to our second item of the evening, which is also a variance and which will also be Avery.
Okay, good evening again. Avery Kerner, Planner 2. So yes, this next item before you is another variance request from the minimum right-of-way standards in the subdivision regulations. And this item is related to a minor subdivision application for consolidation of lots at 1420 Crescent Road. This slide shows the location for the minor subdivision application, which is up near the KU campus. This is the former site of McLean's Bakery, and before that, it was the Jayhawk Bookstore. Again, minor subdivisions are administratively reviewed, and one of the criteria for that review looks at the amount of right-of-way that's existing adjacent to the property and whether that right-of-way meets current minimum right-of-way width standards. For this project, the subject property is adjacent to 2 streets that do not meet the current standards for minimum right-of-way. So Crescent Road is classified as a collector street, which requires a minimum 80 feet of right-of-way. And then Naismith Drive is classified as a limited local street, which requires a minimum 50 feet of right-of-way. So the existing right-of-way for both streets is 40 feet, and the applicant is requesting that the Planning Commission approve a variance from the minimum right-of-way standard for each street, so that additional right-of-way does not need to be dedicated for this minor subdivision to be approved administratively. Again, the subdivision regulations give the Planning Commission the authority to grant variances from the regulations using the 3 review criteria, they're on your screen again, and a memo with staff's analysis of the request has been provided in your agenda packet this evening. Staff's finding is that the request meets all 3 of the criteria for approval, and the city engineer has again communicated that they are in support of approving the variance request for both streets to maintain the existing right-of-way. The recommendation from staff for this item is for approval of the variance request, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Avery. Is the applicant here or want to present this evening?
We're here. We can answer any questions.
Okay. Thank you. Is there any public comment on this item here tonight? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the commission for discussion and vote. Any discussion or questions?
I don't have any issues or problems with this.
Nope.
I don't either for the same reason.
Yep.
Yeah.
Very similar to the previous one.
Yep.
Look for a motion?
Anybody? All right, I'd move approval of the variance request from section 20-1110E5I, the subdivision regulations for University of Kansas Entrepreneurship Hub, a minor subdivision replat located at 1420 Crescent Road to reduce the minimum right-of-way width required for a limited local street from 50 feet to 40 feet, and for a collector street from 80 feet to 40 feet.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye, or raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, motion passes, and we will move to the next several items, and we will hear items 3, 4, 5, and 6 at once. Luke Mortensen is the planner on these items, and he will give us a presentation, and we will hear from the applicant, and we will take public comment on all of these items at once, but we will break them down for individual votes. But if you want to have public comment on any of these items, we'll be doing that all at one time.
Annexation and zoning.
Annexation and zoning will all be presented at once, public comment on all of it, discussion on all of it, and then we'll
plan.
break down our votes.
Good plan.
Okay, sounds great. Luke?
Okay. There we go. Good evening, Commissioners. Luke Mortensen, Planner with Planning and Development Services Department. As Chair Hayden just noted, this next batch of public hearing items is a multi-part request to annex approximately 64 acres of land into the City of Lawrence and establish 3 City of Lawrence zoning districts. As requested, those districts are R1 residential low density, R2 residential low density 2, and P2 open space districts. So I'm going to, as Chair Hayden also noted, I'm going to start with the annexation, and then we'll move through the rezonings, and then of course at the end we'll do 4 separate votes, beginning with the annexation request. So the subject properties are 2 parcels that are currently located immediately outside the City of Lawrence boundaries in unincorporated Douglas County. They are currently addressed as 1008 North 1700 Road and 1032 North 1700 Road. This is in the northeast corner of the intersection between East 1000 and N 1700 Road, immediately north of the Westwood Hills neighborhood. The smaller parcel is approximately 3.5 acres, and the larger parcel is approximately 60 acres, and they currently abut the city on the south and east sides. So here's one more look at the proposed annexation area. I changed the colors of the city limits to pink, so hopefully it stands out a little bit more clearly. On the right, I've got the comprehensive plan's urban growth area tiers. As you know, Tier 1 is comprised of areas already located within the City of Lawrence. Tier 2 areas are located beyond the city's current limits and are expected to develop during the lifespan of the comprehensive plan. And they are to be developed urban and suburban standards and should be annexed into the city when those development requests come in. And then Tier 3 is kind of that sandy brown color. These are areas not expected to develop during the lifespan of the current comprehensive plan. So as you can see in yellow, the subject property is well within Tier 2 and immediately abuts Tier 1. Tier 1. So the smaller parcel currently has 1 existing detached dwelling. The larger parcel remains undeveloped. As you can see, with the exception of the abutting Lawrence Nature Park to the east, the surrounding areas in both the city and the county are primarily residential. There are kind of large lot, rural, detached dwelling residential uses to the north and the west. And then the Westwood Hills subdivision, so that's detached dwelling residential, has been moving northwards in phases kind of since the early 2000s. And then the Lawrence Nature Park is to the east. That's a passive recreation use. Currently, I already said that. So on the right, here we go. On the right, you'll see a concept plan submitted by the applicant as part of this materials package. As you know, a concept plan is just that, it's a concept. The lots, the blocks, the rights of way, those would be formally reviewed and approved as part of the major subdivision process. Still, a concept plan is helpful to give staff and neighbors and commissioners a sense of what the applicant is interested in doing and what they would like to do. The concept plan is helpful because it does show the proposed zoning districts. So those are going to be more firm than the other elements. The proposed P2 is shown in green. The proposed R2 is shown in bright yellow, and then the proposed R1 is shown in kind of that sandy brown. We'll be discussing those a little bit more later. So annexations may occur in a couple different forms. Since the owner has petitioned the city to be annexed into the city, it is considered a consent annexation. So this slide covers some points and process information for consent applications over 10 acres. First, an annexation application must be submitted to staff, and then the city commission must receive that request and authorize the city manager to notify rural utilities and service providers. This annexation request was received in November of 2025 and was initially received by the city commission in early December. And then the city attorney's office sent the formal letters to the rural utilities and service providers this month. And prior to ordinance public, so there's I don't go this much into detail, but there is a required time between the letters being sent to those rural service providers and ordinance publication, and that time would be within kind of the planning and city commission period that we're in right now. Since this proposed annexation is for an area greater than 10 acres, it will come before you tonight for a recommendation to the City Commission, and then of course the final determination will be made by the City Commission. I've highlighted in kind of orange at the bottom some of the prime points from the city's annexation policies. The application satisfies these points as the applicant is seeking annexation into the city in order to develop to city standards and receive those city services that we've discussed. The applicant's property immediately abuts the city on two sides, and it would be a logical extension of the city's boundaries if annexed. So if annexed into the city, future developments in this area would require improvements of some existing road rights-of-way. Primarily, East 1000 Road would be renamed Queens Road and would be required to be reconstructed to minor arterial standards. N1700 Road would be renamed to Peterson Road and would be required to be reconstructed to collector standards. And North Dole Drive would be required to be extended to from its current temporary cul-de-sac north through the proposed annexation area as a collector street. Internal neighborhood streets would be required to be constructed to local street standards. On the left of your screen, I've overlaid the city's Transportation 2050 major thoroughfares map on top of the proposed annexation area. You can see those different road classes. I try to blow them up and add some color there for you. Prior to this evening, I've heard from several neighbors. One of the main concerns was about the extension of Dole Drive. This may not alleviate concerns, but I think it's helpful to note that the city's adopted major thoroughfares maps have long anticipated the extension of North Dole Drive past N1700 Road as a collector street. For that reason, the city often posts the future collector street extension signs in those temporary cul-de-sacs. This is a clip from the North Dole Drive cul-de-sac. And then another helpful hint is that the Westwood Hills 8th plat, when Dole Drive was platted back in 2015, you can see that the cul-de-sac was not platted permanently. That's a temporary cul-de-sac. The intention is that it would punch through to Peterson Road at some point in the future. And like I said, I know that may not alleviate some concerns, but it's helpful to understand why it would develop this way. So the actual right-of-way profiles and the design schematics would be reviewed and approved during the platting process via the major subdivision and public improvement plans components. However, I've clipped some images from Google Street View that might be helpful in giving folks a sense of what these road improvements could look like. On the left is the recently completed Queens Road extension north of the Wakarusa roundabout. So our subject property is just north of here. And then on the right is Overland Drive looking east from George Williams Way. These are both examples of semi-recently annexed, semi-recently developed rights of way at that same road classification level. As discussed in the staff report, none of these road construction improvements are included in the current capital improvement plan. Additionally, at this time, the applicant has not requested the creation of a benefit district to pay for these road reconstruction improvements. Our city engineer, Dave Cronin, I believe he'll be joining us virtually tonight, and he could speak to the benefit district a little bit better than I could if some of those questions arise. So the proposed annexation area is located entirely within the Baldwin Creek Sanitary Sewer Drainage Basin number 1. That is that green shaded color that you see on the left. Future sanitary sewage would flow north towards the existing Baldwin Creek Sanitary Sewer Interceptor via a gravity main. There is an existing City of Lawrence pump station number 44. That's right there on 1700 Road, highlighted in the big red X. As part of a previously approved and CIP funded project, this pump station will be taken offline and a new sanitary sewer interceptor will be installed through the proposed annexation area north towards that Baldwin Creek sanitary sewer interceptor. As discussed in the staff report, these improvements are separate from this annexation application, and as mentioned, those have already been funded by the CIP. The city continues to work towards obtaining remaining easements across some county parcels. And then the red arrows show a very approximate route that this sanitary sewer improvement would take. On the right, you can see the future sanitary sewer mains could look like. I clipped this image from the Westwood Hills neighborhood to the south. These would be your standard neighborhood scale sanitary sewer mains. They would run within easements along rear and side lot lines, and they would look, the proposed annexation area would have a very similar sanitary sewer layout as the area to the south. So the applicant would provide water service by extending an existing water main north through the future Queens Road right-of-way into the proposed development area, and then would be required to loop it back to an existing main in the North Dole Drive right-of-way. So looping those water lines is critically important. Again, I have clipped an image that shows a very rough approximation of what that loop would look like. Obviously, it would move through the subdivision in a more detailed manner, but it would go up past 1700 Road and come back down. So part of the annexation analysis is considering the community benefit provided by the proposed annexation. The comprehensive plan provides flexibility on what may be considered a community benefit. This is to encourage applicants to collaborate with city staff, neighbors, and the commissions to provide a benefit that best fits a proposed annexation. Toward the end of 2025, planning staff facilitated discussions between the applicant and leadership from our Parks, Recreation, and Culture Department. This proposed annexation's community benefit would be an extension of the future Peterson Road east of Dole Drive, and the construction of a second off-street parking area to serve the Lawrence Nature Park. So this off-street parking area would be built to city standards and would offer a second access point to the park. Currently, the only access point is off of Folks Road on the far eastern side of the park. Parks, Recreation, and Culture staff have indicated that they would support this as a community benefit, and have provided their message of support. Okay, with that, I will quickly note that our recommendation for this specific request is a recommendation of approval based on the findings in the staff report. I'm going to roll right into the zonings here. So we've seen these slides before. Okay, so the subject properties are currently surrounded by several different city and county zoning districts. The county Ag 1 and Ag 2 districts are located to the north and the west. Those are the county's agriculture and transitional agriculture districts. And then the city's P2 and R2 districts are located to the east and the south. P2 is our open space district, and R2 is one of our residential low density districts. Douglas County adopted zoning in 1966. The subject properties have maintained an agricultural zoning district designation since that time. So the subject properties are currently surrounded by large parcel rural detached dwelling residential uses to the north and to the west. There are detached dwelling residential uses in the city to the south, and then there is a passive recreation use, the Lawrence Nature Park, to the east. So the largest of the three zoning requests is the R2 district request. This area is approximately 39 acres and would be located directly north of the existing R2 area that abuts the subject properties in the city. So on the left, the two subject properties are highlighted in teal, and the solid yellow is the proposed R2 area. To make it a little bit confusing, on the right, the proposed R2, I've shifted that to kind of a hash and to differentiate it from the existing R2 in the city. So I hope that's clear. I was trying to emphasize how the proposed R2 would be basically sitting on top of the existing R2. So the smallest of the three zoning requests is for the R1. That's our lowest density residential district. The area is approximately 6.5 acres and would be located directly north of the existing R1 district that abuts the subject properties in the city. Those are the lots along Dole Drive. The image on the left, I should have done better colors, but I tried to extend our existing color scheme. You can see how it's a single little, about the width of a row of lots, kind of that sandy brown color moving north from the current Dole Drive cul-de-sac bulb. And then the third request is for that P2 open space district. This is one application request for three separate areas with a total area of about 19 acres. In the staff report, they are referred to as P2 Northwest, P2 Pond, and P2 East. While the P2 district is the city's open space zoning district where parks and recreation uses are permitted, zoning land P2 does not automatically make it a park. For these areas to be parks or sensitive lands conservation areas, they would need to be dedicated and accepted as such during the major subdivision process. Okay, so here's one final exhibit of all three proposed districts kind of put together. Like I said, R2 solid yellow, R1 sandy brown, and then P2 green. I clipped the image from the right because from the staff report. I liked it because it kind of showed how the Queens Road corridor north of 6th Street has kind of developed primarily residentially, but with a wide variety of residential uses. We have everything from detached dwelling all the way up to pretty large multi-unit dwelling developments. And then we do have a few remaining large undeveloped parcels in there. I kind of dive into that analysis a little bit deeper in the staff report, but I liked how this showed that this proposed annexation and zoning would be essentially an extension of that kind of growing residential corridor along Queens Road. So as you all know, the Planning Commission is charged with considering these proposed rezonings against the Land Development Code's review and decision-making criteria and forwarding your recommendations to the City Commission. Staff also reviewed these rezoning requests against the same criteria. In the interest of time and brevity tonight and understanding we may have some public comment, and because staff ultimately landed on recommendations of approval, I will rely on the analysis in the staff report. I am happy to discuss any specific points or questions you have if those arise. I will just emphasize that this is the first step in the development process, as you all well know. The next phase, if approved, would be the two-step major subdivision process where the preliminary plat would come back before you for your consideration and approval. During the preliminary and platting, or during the preliminary and final platting steps, staff would ensure any proposed subdivision satisfies the Land Development Code standards, so that includes protection of sensitive lands in conformance with each zoning district's required minimum and maximum densities. And then that next phase would also include the public improvement plan process where municipal services and operations staff would review those public improvements for compliance. This would also be when the funding mechanism for those public improvements would be ironed out. So with that, this is the staff recommendations on the zoning pieces. We're recommending approval on all three zoning pieces. And then I'm going to leave you with this final slide. It has our recommendations on the annexation and the 3 rezonings. There's a lot of information there. Happy to stand for questions, and our applicant is with us tonight.
Thank you, Luke.
And I think we should have some MSO support staff on Zoom tonight, I think.
Wonderful. Does the applicant want to present at the moment or add anything to Luke's presentation?
Before he starts, just to let you know, Commissioner Thomas texted me and he has lost audio on his side.
Okay.
So he's watching, he just can't hear anything.
Okay.
We won't be able to.
This is Charlie. I called in, so I have audio over the phone.
Okay.
Excellent.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you both. Yes.
All right. Hi, Commission. Corby Rust, Land Plan Engineering. Luke was very thorough, so I'll move through this pretty quickly. You've heard some of this before, but with the annexation of the 64 acres, Plan 2040 does support annexation as both an urban growth area and a Tier 2 growth area. It's bordered by the Lawrence city limits on the entire east side and south side of the 2 parcels. Tier 2 growth requires readily available utilities. As Luke showed, the city plans to abandon pump stations 44 and 45 with the gravity extension north, and our timing with this development coincides with that gravity sewer line. And again, city water will be extended from the 12-inch main at Eisenhower up to at least Peterson, and will loop back into the 8-inch main that's on North Dole Road. Additionally, annexation is supported by Transportation Plan 2050. As you heard, the Queens Road extension, the Dole extension as a collector, and North Dole is shown as a future collector, so that would become a collector, and Queens Road, of course, will be improved up to Peterson, which is the minor arterial. And Peterson does extend and provide access, as mentioned, to the city's open space. The parcels, according to the maps I saw, do not have an assigned future land use, so there's no discrepancy there. Let's see here. And the annexed area abuts the Lawrence-Douglas County Fire and Medical Department District. As far as zoning goes, the R2 zoning provides the 3 required distinct dwelling types for the development greater than 40 acres. You haven't seen a plat yet. You're about to. The plat is done, so all the numbers I took off here are accurate. 156 single-family lots and 14 two-unit lots. The R2 abuts existing R2 zoning to the south, and the R2 zoning area is planned for an adequate net density of 4.4 units per acre. I'm working 4 to 6 is the R2 density requirement, so we're at 4.4. The R1 zoning provides 15 single-family lots, and that is consistent with the existing development lots south on Dole Road. And again, the R1 that we're proposing abuts the existing R1 zoning to the south. And this R1 zoning area is planned for an adequate net density of 2.3 units per acre. The max is 3. So 2.3 units per acre, we can be up to 3. The P2 zoning district provides 19 acres of open space. That's 29% of the total development area. This space includes a 2-acre community park with an existing pond and mature trees, a 5-acre tract of protected forest in the northwest corner of the site, and a 12-acre tract of protected forest and sensitive land, where the creek is, between the R2 and the R1 zonings. So now roughly 54% or 35 acres of the existing parcels is forested. This zoning that we're proposing ensures that, by my calculation, 67% of the forest area will remain. And the open space provides the desired connectivity and walkability within the neighborhood all the way from Queens to Dole. The entire neighborhood is walkable through the P2 districts, and the community park is accessible from all directions within the neighborhood. But again, that's platting stuff, and you'll see that shortly. And the developer is here. If you have any questions for either of us, we will be happy to answer them.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any public comment on this item here tonight?
Yes.
Okay, please come up to the podium and just state your name, and you'll have three minutes. Becky, I can't see the clock. If you would just kind of like help me. You'll have 3 minutes for a public comment.
Okay, this is regarding annexation request A25002. I'm talking on behalf of many people there, many residents. Let me first make a comment. The presentation by him did not give any counterpoints that many of the people have written, emails, and that was surprising. The land under consideration for annexation is a mature forest, a critical natural resource that sustains a variety of wildlife and provides an irreplaceable natural buffer on the north side of the city. The proposed development would obliterate this habitat, disrupting the delicate local ecosystem and forcing wildlife into nearby neighborhoods, creating risks for both animals and residents. Furthermore, this forest plays a key role in stormwater absorption. Its removal would lead to a dramatic increase in runoff, exacerbating the risk of flooding, erosion, and overwhelming already strained drainage infrastructure. The proposed development would also have a devastating impact on local traffic and infrastructure. The roads in this area are simply not designed to accommodate the density of its subdivision, and this development would drastically increase congestion while compromising safety and quality of life for the existing residents. The loss of privacy and the destruction of the neighborhood's character, which many of us chose precisely because of its natural setting, would be irreversible. Moreover, there are more suitable infrastructure-ready areas for new housing elsewhere in the city, particularly along the K10 bypass corridor, where development would not require the destruction of irreplaceable natural spaces. This project represents a poor decision in terms of urban planning and growth, and it would significantly diminish the long-term sustainability and livability of our community. For these reasons, many of the neighbors, strongly urge the Planning Commission to reject Annexation A25002 and the associated rezoning requests. This proposal is a disservice to the neighborhood, the environment, and the city's vision for sustainable growth. I implore you, and we all implore you in the neighborhood, hundreds of houses, to prioritize the responsible development that respects and enhances the unique natural features of our city. And you have done a great job about sustainability. So I suggest you give a serious consideration for what we are saying. I'm very surprised that in the presentation by that very capable young man that no counterpoint whatsoever was brought into this. It was kind of shocking. I'm sorry to say this.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here to speak on this evening? Yes, please feel free to. And I believe the podium can be, can go down if, is that?
There you go.
Thank you, thank you. If you can't see over, or you can't see us, I believe that the podium can be put down. Is that correct, Becky? Yeah.
Would you like that lower?
That's fine.
Please state your name.
Francis Kelly, 1036 North 1700 Road. So I'm just a few yards east of the east side of this proposed annexation. I want to amplify what this gentleman said. I agree with every word he said. This is a home for the deer. There is no reason in the world to extend Dole north across 1700 Road. It's just fine as a cul-de-sac. Why make it a collector street and run off the deer that every single day the deer cross from the woods where the Lawrence Nature Park is? They cross over into all those houses in the West Hills because the deer don't know where to go anymore. They don't have any land left. That's what's being taken away. And I also propose an environmental impact statement so that there can be a good judgment on what happens to the drainage of that creek that we were talking about. And as he mentioned, there are other places where you could put houses. Just west of the medical buildings, across from Spin on Wakarusa, there's a whole lot of land that doesn't have any houses on it. As you go northwest towards the roundabout on Wakarusa, there's a whole bunch, many acres there that could put houses. There's no reason to screw up this beautiful, pristine area that is home to the deer, which are running out of space in this world. As Joni Mitchell sang, they paved paradise and put up a parking lot. We don't want, the neighbors do not want this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me, I used only 2 minutes of my time. Can I use 1 more minute if you don't mind?
I don't believe so, but let me take. Excuse me?
I just want to.
No, you cannot. Is there other public comment on this item this evening?
Yes.
Yes. Go ahead. Like you can go ahead since you're standing, and then we'll come online. Thank you.
My name's Reed Dillon. I live just south of Francis, and I respectfully disagree with Francis. I think Lawrence desperately needs new lots, and the amount of natural space that is being maintained to this is extraordinary compared to any other subdivision that's ever been approved in Lawrence. So the development's inevitable, and I think this developer will do it in a conscientious way that will reflect well on the city.
Thank you. Is there public comment online? We'll turn online, and then we'll come back to those in person.
Yes, I've got a comment.
Yes, please go ahead. I can't quite read your name, so if you'll state your name, that'd be great.
Michael Huslick.
Thank you, Michael.
I am not a resident of that area, but I do volunteer work in the Lawrence Nature Park, and I parked there at the north end of Dole in order to access that. I find trying to get off of Dole back onto Wakarusa is very hard because of traffic on Wakarusa, so I can't imagine what it would be like if Peterson Road connects to Dole. I've left some comments, I emailed some stuff earlier, but the thing I wanted to talked about was this
East, P2 East, I would like it to be connected through R1, R1 being changed to a P2, and all that be connected to Lawrence Nature Park, so that it doesn't become the area P2 doesn't become an island like they have, where species doesn't intermix with others. Plus, the deer will have problems crossing Dole if that goes through. But and I just wanted to, I know they mentioned an extraordinary amount of natural land left, but consider New York City's Central Park and Kansas City's Swope Park. So I would like to keep as much natural area in that area as possible. So thank you.
Yep, thank you. Is there any other comments online? If so, just raise your hand online and we will get to you. Don't see anyone online. Is there anyone else here this evening that's here to make public comment?
I'll just step over here. My name is Monte Sokup.
You can take it down if you want, so you can see that half of the room.
5750 Yankee Tank Court here in Lawrence. I've been working in the affordable housing realm for the city on committees and volunteer things for about the last 10 years. And I think if you ask the Board of Realtors, anybody in the real estate business, supply is the problem that's driving the cost of housing up in Lawrence. So I just want to personally speak in favor of the annexation and the addition of the R2 and R1 areas in the city to help with the supply and help with affordable housing. Whether or not these are affordable houses or not, the supply has an impact on that problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here this evening or online to speak on this item this evening? Right. It doesn't look like it. So does the applicant have any response that it would like to make before we bring it back to the commission? You're certainly not required to. We know you're here for questions.
No, I would just like to reiterate the amount I'm proud of the amount of P2 space we get to zone here. It's not something I bring up oftentimes when I'm in front of this commission because it's not good news. And in this case, it is good news. And we are, again, providing access to more P2 open space, recreational space, preserved areas that are just to the east. And so there's significant space next to us, and we are adding significant space, and we are trying to do everything right with the design. And I will also reiterate that MSO and planning will not let us do anything that we cannot do in relation to stormwater and that sort of thing. So it will all be very well planned out, and that is the end.
Thank you. With that, I'll bring it back to the commission for discussion. Questions?
I have a question. I'm basically trying to make sense of things that I heard here tonight and the items that I read throughout the weekend. And what we're trying to do today is we're discussing 4 different items. One of them will be annexation, and the other 3 will be rezoning, right? And that is it. That we're not doing platting. We're not taking we're taking in consideration how many houses they're proposing, but this is not a plat. This is just rezoning and an annexation. And the other thing is, are we recommending to the city commission any of these items, or are we approving all of them here tonight?
Your charge is to forward a recommendation on all 4 items to the city commission.
Okay. Perfect. That was.
And yes, we will take the annexation first, and then depending on that, we'll move to.
We'll move to the. Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
And you're right. Once something is zoned, it doesn't matter what the plat or anything that we've seen this evening. Those are all concept plans.
Exactly.
So it's just the annexation and the zoning.
You're just trying to get a bear of where this is heading.
Yes.
Basically.
Right.
Great question.
And I'm sorry to members of the public. Now is the time where we are having our discussion up here, and so we have to continue our discussion here. And unless someone up here has a specific question for someone in the audience, we keep the discussion up here while we're discussing this item. So thank you.
I've got Jane, do you want to go?
After you.
I have a handful of questions, kind of a mix of different things. And Luke, if I could start with you, I need to understand the little box down here in the bottom left-hand side of the area that's being annexed. I don't know if that's drawn out of the area or if it's drawn inside the area. Is
The red box?
It's currently outside. That will be a part of what's annexed. Is that correct?
I'm going to, I couldn't hear you quite so well over there, so I'm going to jump up here.
All right.
Okay.
In the bottom, towards the left, in the left third, there's a little box that's marked that it's in the same color as what's been marked around it, so I assume that that's part of what's being annexed, but is that the same property owner? Is that a different property owner? Is it going to be a part of the development or outside of it?
And it's in the southeast corner?
West.
Southwest.
Southwest.
It's same property owner.
It is.
Two different properties.
Yes. It's currently zoned AG2, so it's marked out separately because around the remaining area is AG1 currently.
Yeah, that goes to zoning. I'm talking about annexation at
Yeah,
first.
so there's, would it be all right if I just come up and look?
You betcha. Talk about that little block
With the
there,
house on
right?
it.
And every map I see, that's marked, there's a
Yes.
box around it marked separately. And I want to understand why it's being treated differently with almost everything we've looked at, including how it's being zoned. The lines went through it and
Yeah.
boxes. I don't get it.
It gets a little, the smaller parcel, the approximately 3 acre, that's 1008 and 1700 Road. That's an existing detached dwelling owned by the property owner.
Okay.
The property owner owns the area around it. That is a second parcel. That is address 1032 and 1700 Road. So it's one owner, two applicants, and they are both part of the proposed annexation area.
All right, thank you. And so you showed a map on zoning, and one of those, maybe it was the one, or a couple of them, maybe it was the one that was showing open space, but it kind of drew a line through that. Is that going to be a separate lot? Actually, I'll tell you what, I'm going to hold that when we talk about zoning.
Yep, I'm going to pull the presentation back up.
I'm going to confuse us. All right. Let me go to another question around, if I can, and ask a question around Dole Drive. And this might be for MSO, I'm not sure, but was Dole Drive built as a collector? Is it a collector as it is right now? I got to tell you, I drove down it today, and there was construction going on, and I could barely get through just with one car. So I'm curious if there's plans that that's going to have to be changed.
So and I'll let Dave, if Dave's on, or anybody from MSO jump in. Between Wakarusa and Chesbro, it is currently a designated collector street. And then it's just that future collector north of Dole Drive. I don't think there would be any additional improvements to the existing segment of Dole Drive.
All right, thank you. I know I've got more, but I'm going to stop there because I can't remember what it was.
Okay. Commissioner Eldridge.
Luke, what is a service plan?
So a service plan is talked about in the comprehensive plan, and it is kind of a comprehensive understanding of the utilities and services to be provided to the proposed annexation area. And I think I know your question. We don't have a specific service plan for this application. The reason being, during the pre-application phase, when we had several meetings between city staff and the applicant, we had some good conversations at that time, followed up with several rounds of notes between us about how utilities should be extended at that point. So there was an understanding at the pre-application period of generally how those utilities would be extended. The other thing that Corby mentioned was, because the sanitary sewer project is already planned to go through this area, there's been some work between our MSO staff and the property owner already, dedicating easement, getting the alignment for that sewer. So while we don't have a service plan on paper as part of this application packet. We did have those discussions at the front end of this process.
And at this time, there is no service plan, and the comprehensive plan requires there to be a service plan along with the application.
The comprehensive plan requires it. We've had service plan discussions, but yes, we do not have a definitive service plan on paper.
And yet your recommendation is for approval despite the lack of a service plan.
Based on our discussions and with MSO staff during the review period and our pre-application meeting discussions where MSO staff, sanitary sewer engineers, water engineers, and Dave Cronin, our city engineer, were giving us kind of guidance on that front end during the pre-application phase.
But at this point, we do not know how any of the utilities are going to be funded, whether there will be benefit districts or whether they'll be part of a capital improvement program, and how much the city will be responsible for paying for all of these utilities.
That's correct. At this phase, the city would not be responsible for anything. If the city were part of a benefit district, the city would be responsible for its portion of the benefit district that it would, that allotted to it, basically.
Well, and at this time, we don't have any definition of any proposed benefit districts.
Correct.
So we do not know what other properties might be pulled into a benefit district for
Correct.
roads or for any other utility.
That's correct.
Okay. The other thing I wanted to ask you about is the concept plan. A great plan, wonderful plan, but it's not binding in any way, even as to the number of lots or the number of housing units that would be built. Is that correct?
So, yes, the lots, the blocks, and the rights of way shown on the concept plan are not binding. The zoning lines are, we do have legal descriptions provided with those, and if you recommended approval and the city commission approved it, those boundaries that you see on the concept plan would become binding. But yes, the lots, the blocks, and the rights of way are not binding at this time.
Okay. And lastly, with respect to the land that would create an additional access for a park, has that land been dedicated, or is there an easement of any kind at this point?
So between the future intersection of Dole Drive and future Peterson Road, that is right of way to the east. So we wouldn't need any sort of access easement at that point. It is still public right of way. And then once we're onto that city property for the park, we wouldn't need any sort of easement or anything.
So in that case, the property owner is not adding any additional land to the city land, but simply recognizing that there will need to be right-of-way that he will have, or he or she will have to dedicate in order to have a road to service the property.
That's correct. There is some right-of-way there now, but yes, the N1700 road right-of-way would be, it may need to be widened, but we would review for that during the subdivision process.
Now, when developers have plans that are inconsistent with our comprehensive plan, I think our comprehensive plan suggests that they request an amendment to the plan. Has this developer suggested the need for any amendment as far as the service plan is concerned, that it perhaps doesn't need to be mandatory in our comprehensive plan?
There was no formal or informal request for any type of amendment.
Okay. Now, my last set of questions has to do with this whole area of the county has been planned in many ways, and in some ways this property is like the last two pieces of the puzzle. We've got, let's see, what used to be the Northwest plan along 6th and K10, and we've got the plan for the Wakarusa and 6th, and we've got the K10 plan north of this area. Has any consideration been given to extending one of those existing plans or creating an area plan that would include then a service plan for all of this area, not just this particular applicant, but I think there's also some undeveloped property to the west? Has any consideration for that been given?
Yeah, so there has not been any discussion about extending the areas of any of the existing adopted sector plans. And Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, if this area were to be part of a new sector plan or an amended sector plan, that would be part of the PDS work plan for the future.
Luke is right. If there was going to be a modification of the west of K10 plan, which is the adopted plan in that area, that would be something that would be put on the work plan. It would probably be at least 3 to 5 years down the line at this point in time, just knowing staff capacity and the current plans that we have underway.
Thank you. Thank you.
I did remember my question.
Go for it.
And again, I'm not sure if it's Luke or MSO. Concern was raised about how development here might create a water runoff problem. I know that you don't typically get into that until you're into on the subdivision and the plat, that time. But I am curious if there's been any early thought given to that, and if there's any, like for example, I note that the drawings you showed about how gravity would feed the sanitation system. I wonder if that solves also for any risk to runoff going south.
Kyle Gondrans, our stormwater engineer, is on, I believe, with us. But I'll just mention, as you already noted, part of the preliminary and final platting submittal materials is all of the supplemental stormwater studies and drainage information, detention, retention. Kyle, am I missing anything?
Yeah, Kyle, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, when they provided a concept plan, which I don't think they're required to do, I did have a comment, just everything will be done subject to the development code, including the stream channel setbacks. So I think that maybe had changed a little bit of the layout with the concept plan, but really it's too early to make any kind of determinations or anything about how exactly, I haven't seen this more developed concept till before tonight. So I think for the rezoning, we just kind of look at, can this be feasible? And then we'll look at more details in the preliminary plat.
You'll solve for all that, all when we're supposed to.
Yep.
That's not part of it tonight.
Not tonight.
Thank you.
And sorry, the preliminary plat, as you know, would come back before you guys.
Yep. Yeah, I'll just say I'm excited to support the annexation. I think it makes perfect sense where it's going. It's a part of the plan that we've had for development and growth of our city all along, as evidenced by the sign at the end of Dole Drive saying, this is where we're going. I've not seen that before, but I know we've got some rezoning work to do, but I do like this. I like the plan that they've laid out. I particularly like the preservation of the wooded area. I love the way that they're thinking about bringing the R1 component straight up off of Dole Drive so it's consistent. It'd be like just driving down one street and with a wooded area off to your west as you moved along. Anyway, so I'm excited to support it.
I think it keeps the neighborhood feel.
Yeah, yeah.
I have a couple questions. I think it's probably more for staff. Luke, you can take it, or maybe defer to Jeff. I'm just curious about the process and the county's involvement in this type of an annexation, and like the township's involvement and the any rural water like that's out there, because it looks like there's not developed yet, right? There's not much out there. So I'm just trying to figure out what is the role under the plan, the comprehensive plan. It says the annexations will be economical and efficient for all parties, and I assume all parties mean like all government, like everyone a party to the comprehensive plan, which would be the county and the city. So I'm just curious as to the county's participation in annexations. We're starting to see more of them, and so I'm just kind of curious about how that works.
So the county's participation really depends on the type of annexation you talk about. So in a person like a consent annexation like you're seeing tonight, it's basically the owner petitioning to join the city of Lawrence at this point in time. And so there's not really an avenue that necessarily goes to the county or the county commission gets involved in part of it. And Luke did a really great job, and I hate to kind of restate what he said, but it goes to the city commission for the acceptance of the petition. They remand it to you for review, which brings us here tonight, and then it returns back to them for consideration. And so that process really wraps up if they go through first reading and second reading as part of that process. Under the state statute, there's a few other forms of annexation. Depending upon which one it is, then that would involve the county's participation at different stages. So an island annexation or unilateral annexation in certain instances may require that county participation as part of that process. Now, I think the other part of the question was kind of to the townships and the rural water districts effectively. Municipal Services and Operations works real closely with the rural water districts to understand, are there lines in the area, are there meter pits, are there other infrastructure that needs to be accounted for, adjusted, moved, relocated, any number of things. So it's done as the plating starts to unfold and we understand where the line work is going to be. As you all know, that really starts to kind of lay out the gridding for what you would have come next. And really for the townships, it's kind of, when you annex, the city assumes responsibility for the roads and at that point in time. And
We love that. Thank you.
So at that point, it's usually more of those kind of, understanding of, if there going to be a connection point where a city road may tie into a township road, or will the city, how will that kind of engagement work out? And until the plat kind of starts to formalize and get to that point, it's kind of hard to have those conversations, but it is something that we do kind of watch as stuff starts to come through and materialize and have those pretty frequent touch points on that. But for this one this evening, being a consent annexation, it would really come right back to the city commission after you all have a conversation tonight. And then it would be on to the plating to keep having those conversations with other entities. And as part of that, just, make sure everybody's on the same page progressing forward.
Okay, so with the way that this came about, there's no official opportunity for the county, or legal opportunity or involvement in the county that's required or necessary under the laws, and also then it's not typical policy to work with the county on something like this until you get into the weeds of what needs to go where, roads and whatnot wise.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you. Do other people have questions? I haven't looked online lately.
Yeah, if I could comment.
Yes, of course, Commissioner Wilson.
Hey, no, I appreciate the presentation here, and I know we're kind of on the front end of this whole process, and the annexation, it seems appropriate in a lot of ways. I know the city is completely behind this effort, and so I didn't want to jump ahead, but at the same time, through the discussions that we've been having in terms of the zoning and how that concept plan is working into this, I didn't know if now was the right time or appropriate time. Here again, I just didn't want to get behind on this process. If the engineers need to respond to this or what, but Dole, the current Dole Road, as it has been used since for 20 years, 25 years now maybe. If anybody's been on it, as Gary mentioned, to picture that as a collector is remarkable. It's a challenging road as is right now. So I guess I need to see if there's an idea of knowing how the current portion of Dole was being envisioned, and then how that was being considered to tie in. This whole issue of collector, I think, concerns a tremendous amount of folks, because that sounds like Castle version 2, that Dole would turn into Castle, because of homes that are currently literally with driveways on Dole, with mailbox pedestals, and then if you want to try and turn right or left out of Dole onto Tawakarusa, you take your life into your own hands. So I guess the future of that portion and how that ties into the new one will really be interesting, and I think raises a lot of concerns for folks in Westwood Hills. It kind of parlays a little bit into When Queens was done through that special benefit district and the roundabout and everything done, there are a number of drivers that have changed their routes to use Eisenhower to cut through rather than use a roundabout. So there's already some concern there, and then that may bleed over to this issue of increased traffic and the impact it'll make on the houses that front Dole Drive now.
I'm going to defer to our city engineer, Dave Cronin, who's with us tonight.
Yeah, I am here. You have a specific question or just more about Dole Drive?
So maybe just kind of speak to, would there be any improvements proposed to the existing segment of Dole?
Okay, yeah, there will not be any improvements to the existing section. It would just continue on kind of the same alignment that's in the major thoroughfares plan. I would say it's kind of the last section that was built with the last subdivision that has the houses that front it is a little unique. Usually collector streets, we don't recommend houses front collector streets. So it's really turns more into a residential collector, which is a little lower classification. I wouldn't expect Dole Drive to have anywhere near the traffic volumes as some of the other streets, like you mentioned Castle or even Overland Drive. Does that help answer the question, or is there another question?
Well, I mean, you certainly stated clearly. It'll just be an interesting process to go through. I think there's going to be tremendous concern raised if it's not changing in any way of diffusing or altering an increase of use of Dole. And it's interesting, I don't know how common it is. Like you're saying, it's interesting that we've got driveways, 16 or more of them, on substantial homes, on substantial lots, right on that thoroughfare that you're talking about making it into. And it's interesting, I don't know where the responsibility lies on that, considering which came first, the 2050 or this the plan to make that a corridor. And I guess, anyway, I think that's something that it needs to be really on the forefront of this deal to have any success out of it, of how to handle the volumes and the patterns and the traffic. And I guess one side note on that, the sign that is at the end of Dole right now, that it looks like a makeshift sign. I don't know what others thought of it. It had little validity to it, and I bet if you checked with every person on Dole, if they even knew anything about that, it looked more something like somebody's handiwork on it, if I can say that. But this idea would really decide the fate of Dole as it stands right now, and I think that's, again, something that we need to work through. I think the annexation part I support that. In a rezoning, I would support it with caution to how it will not just create this whole new major development, but how it will impact existing areas that surround the area. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Thomas, were you saying that you had a question or you wanted to make a comment when we had turned to online?
Yeah. Just like a lot of things that we do, the devil is in the details, and we'll have zoning, but we don't know the details. We'll just change the zoning. Overall, this seems to me to be a logical piece of property to annex into the city. While I was going through all the material, something jumped out at me, and it talks on page 37 of the 175 pages. In the first paragraph, it says, residential lot inventory is critically low in the city. I would like to know, what is that inventory in the city?
59 single-family
How
homes.
many residential lots are there?
As of Sunday night, the single-family homes in the city of Lawrence was 59. That was the only thing available.
69 lots in
No
the city
lots.
of
No. 59 single-family homes for sale, if that's the your question is lots. How many lots for develop?
How many, right, Pedro, how many, I'm asking, because it says in here that the residential lot inventory is critically low. How many lots are there in the city of Lawrence that have not been built on?
No, I don't have that answer on top of my head.
I'll defer to Jeff on this one.
I will try my best here. For a number of years, our Economic Development Department produced a residential lot inventory report that would track that over a different number of factors there. And part of the factors were always, a lot could be platted but not be available. Someone might want to hold a second lot to be a backyard or encumber it with a swimming pool or any number of other things that you might want to do if you had a little bit of extra yard space on there. So what would show up in the report was frequently a lot would be available or be indicated as being something that could be built on, which is true, but not available to the market, which is also true in its own right. And so during COVID, that was one of the reports that we couldn't maintain and keep up with all the other things going on there. My best estimate at this point in time is we're still probably very critically low at that point in time. If you think about the number of subdivisions you've seen and the number of annexations that you've seen, and I know that you haven't really seen a lot of those in near future there, you're not seeing a lot of lots coming online as part of that. And if you've been following a lot of the building permit activity, a lot of the infill permits have been pulled. And so a lot of that available capacity has been utilized in probably the last 3 to 5 years at this point in time. So I don't have a hard number, Commissioner Thomas. I would say just qualitatively, and what you can kind of see in the community is that there is a shortage in that. And to Commissioner Baroto's other data point there, that kind of manifests in the availability of houses on the market there, which was 59.
59, yes, as of Sunday night.
As of Sunday night. So, I mean, that kind of gives us that qualitative measure for what that lot inventory probably looks like in reality at this point in time. And Commissioner Baroto, thank you for that number.
No problem.
I guess for me, this is kind of like walking and chewing gum at the same time. Yes, we need large lots for housing, and this would be 168 houses approximately. But I'm not sure where the push has been, and maybe I have just missed it, on our infill lots, because it seems like that has been, at least it has been stated as a priority to have infill. So that's my curiosity.
We appreciate it. Did you have another question, or shall you move back to someone else on the panel and we can come back to you if you have more?
Yeah, I'll whistle if I have more.
All right, I had a couple of questions. I was just curious as to the environmentally sensitive lands study and the mature trees and that kind of stuff. When we're looking at growing outside of the bounds of the city, how do we take into consideration like the preserving the natural, like I think this particular project, I applaud the developers for saving like what 67% of the forest or whatever, but I'm just wondering how we take that into consideration when we're thinking about the need for places that are have resources that are still needed within a city, which like a mature stand of trees is not easy it develops over hundreds of years. So I'm just curious about the thoughts about how that comes into play in an annexation kind of situation. I understand with the zoning and that kind of thing, but just how do we look at it environmentally sensitive lands when we're annexing?
It's definitely a balance. We have several parts of our subdivision regulations. They express and define the environmentally sensitive land. So, like you said, we have our mature trees of stands, which is a defined. There are like standards to be a mature tree or a mature stand of trees. are Class 1 and 2 soils, steep slopes, floodway and floodplain. When you're platting, there are requirements to place some of these sensitive lands in an easement, in a tract, in some form of protective state with future maintenance plans, basically. And by plan, I mean it can be written, it can be a note on the plat. This is a environmental protection easement, and there could be some notes about how it's going to be maintained in the future. We recognize that not all, not all sensitive lands can be saved, or else, like you said, there would be no places for, new development. For that reason, there are some abilities for the planning director to determine how much of the sensitive lands need to be protected or not. In residential zoning districts, there are percentage limits. In non-residential zoning districts, it's up to the discretion of the planning director. There are very hard and fast instances. So for example, we have stream buffer setbacks that are new to this new land development code. Those stream buffer setbacks are placed in drainage easements, and they are permanent. And they would need to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals to be reduced. That's not something that the planning director could reduce. So there are some sensitive lands that are absolutely hard and fast protected at the platting stage, and there are some that may not be protected, and that's part of the balance.
Okay, and part of that would be, as the Planning Commission, we would be able to evaluate that under the comprehensive plan, Plan 2040, and the balance that it's being, that the community has said it wants in Plan 2040. This might be more of a Randy question, but I doubt it. That would be something that would also come into play in our discretionary discussion and vote tonight, correct?
Okay. And beyond tonight, at the preliminary platting stage, when easements and rights-of-way are beginning to be laid out, you would also get to see those, where those protected spaces are placed into tracts and easements. So you would get to see it then too.
Is there any protection for that wooded land today?
So we have a definition of a mature stand of trees, and it's based on a contiguous area, and then there's a certain caliper size, and then it has to be form a continuous canopy. Once you qualify as that mature stand of trees, we begin to get into that discussion about conservation protections.
Is that once it's inside the city limits?
Correct.
I'm talking about today.
Oh, correct. Yes, and I'm getting there.
Okay.
So that's kind of the platting part. So say you have a site plan on a lot that exists today and there's no platting component. Again, another part of our new land development code is there are existing vegetation and tree protection standards. So again, if you have enough qualifying trees on a property, there are standards in our code that talk about protection measures, and then if you can't protect them, there are replacement measures for those trees.
Okay. Again, that is once they come in, right? I'm talking about out in the county right now today, there's nothing protecting them. And what I'm trying to get at is I think that once this, if this happens, this wooded area that we have concern about receives protections it does not have today.
To my knowledge, there are no existing protection standards at this time.
Thanks.
So in the county, there aren't regulations and codes regarding environmentally sensitive lands and building on this property. I'm not quite sure that that's
necessarily
accurate.
building on, but preserving a wooded area, they can clear-cut that.
Are you saying that there aren't any county codes that would regulate outside of the city limits development on this property?
I'd have to go and do a little bit of research. I'm not prepared to exactly answer that question.
Yeah, so I just want to be really clear.
I'm not talking about development.
So are there any environmental protections, like open space plan or something that is currently an overlay on this particular piece of property? I think the answer is no, but I don't think that this piece of property, there would still be protections and thoughts of the environmentally sensitive lands if the land were going to be up for any kind of application of change.
Correct.
But the property owner tomorrow could go out
theoretically bulldoze the trees that exist there.
There's no
I
protection.
I don't know. Jeff, is that correct? Like if somebody wants to bulldoze their trees and cut down their trees, I honestly don't know in the county if you have to get a permit to do that or not.
And I'm not advocating that.
Yeah. No.
It's a valid question.
Thanks. No, I mean, I do. I just want to be very clear. I don't want to suggest that that there's absolutely no protection for this whatsoever. And if we bring it into the city, somehow we're giving it protection, if that's not in fact what we're doing. I just want to be careful about that aspect of it. I mean, because there are county codes that if you want to do things in the county, you have to follow, and they're not the codes that are applicable to this application right now. Right. But they're still applicable to this piece of property at the moment.
So sorry.
Go ahead.
So the county code does recognize stands of mature trees. They recognize heritage woodlands, and they do have some standards. Again, they have standards for the floodplain and that sort of thing.
Thank you.
So while they might not instantly line up with what you see in the City of Lawrence code, there is some relatively crossover points on there. I think there are some additional ones that the city code has that maybe the county code doesn't quite have. And in frantically searching, haven't confirmed them all, but I think there's a good number of overlap in those.
Yes.
I know farmers that have gone out and dozed acres and acres of red cedars, as an example. That's not heritage woodland and hardwoods and anything, but.
And to that point, they define mature trees as well. So not every batch of trees is a defined stand of mature trees.
And there are plenty of people who've gone out with a bulldozer when they weren't supposed to, and then the county's called them in. Yeah. So I don't know that, but
my point was that not trying to diagnose the county, but this coming in provides a measure of protection and observation that is positive.
Oh, absolutely. And I think my point was just simply that when we're annexing, our actual governing thing to think about is the comprehensive plan, which is Plan 2040, that actually sets out environmentally sensitive lands and the thoughts about how we handle those and how we reach that balance. And the annexation process is a point in which this board can consider that balance that it's being asked to make. Because that balance, then the next step is simply the regulatory platting process and things like that. But that is something to consider in this process.
No questions, but I have some comments.
Yes, please.
To me, it taking it all as one big whole, the annexation, the rezoning, it does tick off a lot of good check marks. It's in the Tier 2 growth plan, which, as Luke said, means it's going to get developed at some point per that plan. It's right next to the city limits right now, so it's a logical place to extend. It's a neighborhood that's going to, if it looks like what we've seen, which we don't know that for certain yet, going to look an awful lot like the neighborhood that's already there to the south. And the inclusion of the more than 50% of the property to stay green space, that one floored me. And I think it's outstanding. I applaud the developer for doing that. And I fully support this.
I agree. Are there other comments, discussions? I have another.
The only thing I wanted to comment, I don't know if city staff who would be able to answer this. Is Lawrence Avenue a collector? North of 6th. Between 6th and Deerfield Elementary, whatever it is. The reason I'm asking is it is also in the city engineer, somebody else from MSO might have an opinion. My kid goes to Deerfield and I drive that street. On the east side, there are houses that abut Lawrence Avenue directly, like the driveways are on Lawrence Avenue. And then there's not roundabouts, but there are islands in the middle that separate the east and the west northbound, southbound lanes. I know that I said that weird, but it's a north and southbound road, but there's an island in the middle that separate the two from the east and west, sorry. Anyway, to Commissioner Wilson's concern, which I do understand because I did go look at this Dole Road, that is not an unusual development in Lawrence. I mean, it's not most common. And to the point of the engineer, that is not a normal development in the sense of like all the community neighborhoods that we have do not have this, directly into the arterial road or the collector road, excuse me. And so I would say that based on my experience of driving that road every day, a lot, I don't see it as a huge concern if it's done correctly and if the city engineer feels as if it is meeting the correct, limits for safety and all of that stuff. I understand the concern, but at the same time, we have plenty of other streets. Lawrence Ave is just one that I drive all the time, and I can say from experience, it's not a major concern. Cars backing in and out of their driveways don't typically have any issues. I mean, I don't know of any wrecks. The only wreck I've ever seen is a parent pulling out a deer field way too quickly and not paying attention. That's what I've seen.
Commissioner, if I got the street right, and make sure it's between Princeton and
Princeton, yes.
West 6th, Lawrence Avenue between those two?
Yep.
It is a collector.
Yep. Okay. So I thought, and again, not to try to discredit Commissioner Wilson's concerns. I want to be clear. I understand where you're coming from there. I just wanted to give an example of an existing street that has a very similar setup and design that I do believe is, functional, and I don't feel unsafe driving it, personally.
Commissioner Baroto, were you also going to say something?
No, it's fine. No, I just wanted to, I don't have any questions. I've just had a similar comment as Commissioner Kelso. I fully support this application, knowing the whole aspect of what is going and what still needs to be done and approved to get there. But looking at it and economically, just from a different point of view, bringing close to 200 additional single-family homes into the market, that helps a lot to the already very, very low inventory in the city. So, I think it's a great idea just to keep workforce and to help families that want to expand or, to the city of Lawrence.
I have another. Is anybody online? Anyone have a question online? Okay. I have another question. I am concerned that I do think everything that everyone said. I think this is a great way of trying to get this, and I absolutely commend the way that the zoning, if it goes through, is lined up with the other zoning and the open space and the trying to save all of the stuff. I think it looks like a great concept. My concern, though, is that. It looks to me like it's in direct violation of the comprehensive plan, particularly section 3.7. And so I just wanted to, I don't know if Randy wants to speak to that. Commissioner Eldridge is the one who raised it, but there is a shall. It says annexation request shall include a service delivery plan. That includes, and then it goes on with a list of things that are included. And I hear staff saying that has not been done. And so I do have concerns about that.
For some reason, my camera is dark, but this is Randy Larkin, Deputy City Attorney. I mean, that is a requirement of the comprehensive plan, so that it's worthy of consideration. It's not a requirement of state statute for annexation. So once you get to certain things regarding unilateral unilateral annexations, there has to be a plan before that can be done statutorily. For a consent annexation like this under the state statute, there does not have to be a plan in place beforehand, but that is in the comprehensive plan, so that's within your discretion.
Thank you, Randy. And thank you, Commissioner Eldridge. I had not made that connection. Is there anyone else have any other questions or discussions?
Got to just click on that just one time. So before it's annexed, that service plan needs to be there. So presumably that means before the city commission would take that up, the plan would be in place. Is that?
It says requests. Annexation requests shall include.
Yeah.
And this is a request. I mean, that.
Well, it's one. Yes, I understand that.
Yeah. Okay.
I understand that.
Yeah, okay.
And in my mind, there's a process that we go through, and the city is the last step on that. But so my question, though, is, would that service plan, is that something that the city commission would ask to have done before they would give their final approval or denial?
That is something they could ask if they would so choose. And sorry, I cut off Randy there, I hate to say, so.
Yeah, this is Randy Larkin, Deputy City Attorney. Jeff is exactly right. A lot of times with these type of consent annexations that are right next to the city, a lot of times the infrastructure is there and it's just a matter of the developer extending it, and that might be the plan. I'm just going to extend it from the neighboring properties. It's not like they've got to bring it from 3 miles someplace or bore under a highway or some other things like that. So I just wanted to let you know that that's usually the case when we require plans or when there's a unilateral things, that there's some difficulties. And I don't know exactly the situation here, but the plan might be just to connect from the neighboring properties.
Okay.
Randy, I'd like to ask a question about the language in the comprehensive plan that says that it is a binding land use document. And with the language that says we shall consider the annexation request of which the service plan shall be a part. Because in this case, I think that what we don't know is whether we are able to live up to the vision for growth management to provide growth in new areas where infrastructure is planned to be cost-effective and sustainable while maintaining existing residents' quality of life. Specifically, we don't know about any benefit plans here. It may be that there are benefit plans that will be coming along later that will make the existing residents' quality of life very difficult. And I think this plan for annexation is appropriate when we have the service plan. I think it's just a little premature at this point. But I'd like to ask Randy about the fact that this is a binding land use document.
This is Randy Larkin, Deputy City Attorney. Is a plan. It's not the law. It should guide the city's decisions and the county's decisions regarding land use. But like we talk about when it comes to rezonings or special use permits, it's just merely a factor whether or not a property complies with zoning, with the comprehensive plan. But at the same time, you should take it into consideration and consider it. And if you believe that this is in violation of it and you don't want to support it for that reason, that is appropriate.
Thank you, Randy.
My only comment on that, and I totally understand what you're saying, is I feel confident that the city has already been working because this land abuts the existing properties, especially with the sanitation lines that are already being discussed, because that pump is being disabled anyway, and they're going to have to put in a new one. So I think there's already a significant amount of communication. I do see what you're saying. I feel very confident that the city engineers and MSO and all the people involved with, all of the utilities that are necessary have started to take those steps based on the conversations that both the applicant and Luke presented to us. And so I guess it is going to come down to the decision whether or not it is, something that we feel is needs to be a binding aspect of it, or a consideration, as Randy said, towards the decision of approval or denial.
Thank you.
I think that was well articulated. I appreciate that. And I'm willing to identify this as something that warrants consideration, but shouldn't necessarily control the consideration. Of course, different commissioners might have different perspectives. There's that, and I'd also echo Commissioner Kelso's comments earlier as to this seems like a very reasonable, sensible, logical annexation plan, that this checks all the right boxes. If this particular proposal isn't an acceptable annexation plan, I'm not sure what would be that would come in front of us, just given its location and its connection to the city, and it's, yeah, it seems like it fits.
Okay. It's a great call out on the service plan and the texts in the comp plan. It's clearly a miss. I mean, it's clearly a miss, and it needs to be cleared by the time it makes it through the city commission. I think, though, I agree with what these folks have said, that for me, it doesn't represent a reason to stop tonight. I think that it's the right area, it's a great developer, it's the right time, it meets our plan and our decision criteria. There's a lot of great questions, and the developers have heard a preview of the concerns that they're going to face when the plat comes through. I hope that they're ready for that, but I'm still in support of going forward with the annexation tonight.
Anyone online have any other comments?
Permission to respond to what Luke elaborated on.
I'm sorry that the public comment is closed for this evening.
He's got new stuff that he brought up.
Exactly.
That's not how the process
No, but
works.
this is a highly undemocratic.
I'm sorry, but if you're going to speak out of turn, we'll have to ask you to leave the meeting. Anyone online, any of the commissioners online, did you have further comments?
No, Charlie.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes. It'd be great if you spoke up loudly, though.
Okay, it is harder, I've discovered it is harder to follow on Zoom. Jane, restate what you see as a requirement that is not being met with this annexation proposal again.
He wants you to restate maybe the point that you see isn't meeting the comprehensive plan.
Okay.
And make sure you're in the microphone. So
Yeah, speak up really loud.
Charlie, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Jay.
Good. I think it comes down to the fact that the comprehensive plan requires a service plan, that the comprehensive plan is a land use document that is binding, that the comprehensive plan states that all development proposals must comply with the comprehensive plan, that this is a wonderful proposal. In my view, it's simply premature because it violates the comprehensive plan. And for that reason, I can't support it at this time. I certainly would support a deferral. I'd support it at any time it has a service plan along with it. But I don't believe that we can meet the vision of providing efficient and sustainable utilities that serve both the new area and the quality of life for the existing residents. So I cannot support it at this time.
So in the plan, it says it must have this service plan
Yes.
Okay. So Randy, I want to hear why do you say we can ignore that?
I'm not saying that you ignore it. This is Randy Larkin, Deputy City Attorney. I'm just saying that it's a factor. The statutes of the state of Kansas do not require a service plan for this type of annexation, but they do for other types of annexation. This could be somebody who has the property next to the city and just wants to annex it and have it in the city for years and years before they do anything with it. We wouldn't require a service plan in that situation. The state doesn't require for this type of annexation. However, for other types of annexations, they do require service plans. I know what our, what the comprehensive plan says, and it is a guiding principle for land use decisions. It's not the law, it's a plan. So if you want to follow the plan, I'm fine with that.
Other discussion?
I guess.
Here, when I simply thought, okay, this is a logical tract of land that is abutted on two sides by the city in the Tier 2 area. And at the same time, if we choose to ignore the part of the plan that says there must be a service plan, does that give us permission to ignore other parts of the plan that we find inconvenient?
Charlie, is that a question and is that directed at someone?
That's someone who might answer it.
This is Randy Larkin, Deputy City Attorney. It is a plan. It is a guiding principle, but it's only a factor in many of our decisions, such as rezonings or special use permits. It's not law, it's a plan. And that's all I really can say about it. It says what it says, and if you want to follow it, then that is appropriate. In this situation, whether or not there's a plan, you can definitely say no, or you can say it's just a factor, and I believe that the plan will come out later, and it's fine.
I personally, I appreciate Mr. Larkin's counsel and guidance on this. I think he's certainly more familiar with the technical ins and outs and requirements of this type of decision than I am. So I appreciate the guidance here. For what it's worth, my own view of the comprehensive plan in the section where this comes up, the reference is 3.7, annexation request shall include, et cetera, et cetera. That's on a list of goals. It's not requirements. There's nothing here that says that annexation request is invalid if made without this. It's one of 9 goals in this area, one of, it looks like maybe 20 or 30 goals generally with respect to annexation matters that are to be taken into consideration as we're making these decisions. And I'm willing to view this particular goal alongside the others in weighing this application. And I think with that, I'd like to make a motion. Move that we approve annexing A-25-002, approximately 65 acres located at 1008 North 1700 Road and 1032 North 1700 Road, based on the findings presented in the staff report and forwarding it to the City Commission with a recommendation for approval.
Is there a second? Any further discussion? I'd just like to say I believe that I agree with Professor, with Commissioner Eldridge, and I appreciate the binding aspect of the community plan and the efforts on the community's goals that were set out in it. And because it specifically did go beyond the Kansas law that requires certain types of annexations to require the service plan, it does request that in all annexations in the under the plan. And so with respect for that, I'm going to be voting against this, but the annexation of it, but I do very much agree with what everyone said about the actual project that has been presented. It just seems premature to me at this time. I don't want my vote to be read as being against
I just want to
plan.
say I appreciate the comments of every one of the commissioners tonight.
So wonderful discussion. So any other discussion before we move to a vote? All right, all in favor of the motion? Oh. Any opposed? Did you get everyone online? Okay. Any abstentions? All right, it looks like the motion passes. And we will move on to a vote on the next item, which would be the first zoning.
Could I ask a favor of Luke to put the slide up, Luke, that showed the language for all the approvals, please? To save a lot of scrolling.
Yes.
Look, you've got it. Oh, no, you go ahead. You go ahead. Sorry, Luke, it looks like.
I have it. Oh, great. I take screenshots of your stuff because you move too fast. I'm joking. But I can't remember your rezoning request or your approvals. I would like to recommend forwarding the rezoning request Z-25-0018 to City Commission with a recommendation for approval based on the findings presented in the staff report.
Second.
So we have a pending motion on the first item of the zoning. We have not really had discussion on that item beyond what we did with the annexation. So if anybody would like to discuss this item, now is the appropriate time to do that, but there is a pending motion on the floor. Just so you know, procedurally, we usually have discussion, vote, then additional discussion. So we have a pending motion, but there is opportunity for discussion.
Can't speak for anyone else. I approached the conversation we had before contemplating all of the motions that were in front of me. So for me, I'm fine with it.
Okay, because, well, you had asked about the specific, there was like a line drawn, and you were going to ask, okay, you were the one actually I was thinking of. I was like, somebody has some questions about zoning, so I want to make sure we get that. Okay, okay. Anyone online have any discussion on this item?
I've got a question. So since I'm remote here, I'm trying to just stay on this best I can. And are we going to have just one motion and one vote on, we have to have separate?
Yes,
okay.
We will vote on each of the zoning.
Thanks for the head nod, Michael. I appreciate it.
Sorry. I was like, I wondered if you could see my head. I was like, yep.
Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you.
Any further discussion? All right, all in favor of the motion, raise your hand. All of those opposed? Any abstentions? The motion passes. All right, we will look at item number 5.
Ready?
Yes.
I recommend forwarding the rezoning request Z-25-0022 to the City Commission with a recommendation for approval based on the findings presented in the staff report.
No, second.
All right. Any discussion on this item?
Yes, I want to make it clear that the reason I voted against the first one and this one too is because I couldn't support the annexation, not because I think that the zoning is a bad deal.
And I actually was going to clarify too. I am going ahead and voting the way that I would vote had I supported the annexation. So, yes. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor of the motion, raise your hand. Those opposed? Any abstentions? All right, motion passes. And we will take the next item.
I recommend forwarding the rezoning request Z-25-0023 to the City Commission with a recommendation for approval based on the findings presented in the staff report.
Is there a second? Second. All right. Any further discussion on this item? All right. All those in favor? All those opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. All right. We will now move on to the, that's all of them, right?
I think, is that it?
Yeah.
That's all the,
Like all of
sorry.
mine. So I just
I'm
wanted to
sorry.
make sure.
My apologies.
All right,
I was
will-
already zoned to the
That's
next.
okay. We will move on to the next item, which is to consider the text amendment 26-0010. And it looks like Drew will be our planner on that.
All right. Good evening, commissioners.
Do we need to take a quick break or anything? I think this item won't be too, okay.
I'm okay.
Just want to check.
Yes. Yes. So yeah. Hopefully this is pretty brief. This is probably ringing some bells in your guys' mind. This is a text amendment for the short-term rental uses in the city for the FIFA World Cup. Essentially, what this iteration of the text amendment is the repealing of the text amendment that establishes that the non-owner occupied uses being permitted in the R1 and the R2 districts. So essentially, with the text amendment, we're not really able to put an end date and have the text amendment go away. It has to be repealed. And so essentially this text amendment is repealing that change effective at the end of the date we set out on July 29th, 2026. So essentially, yeah, this text amendment is just to bring the code back to where it was, prohibiting non-owner occupied short-term rental uses in the R1 and the R2 district.
Are there any questions about that or discussions for Drew?
I will say I appreciate the clarity on that. When I was reading this, I was really taken aback. I was like, wait, we just talked about this one? And then I read deeper and obviously started to comprehend that it's the repeal. I didn't thank you for clarifying that we can't end date it without the repeal. I did not know that ahead of time. So thank you.
And just one thing to add to Drew's great presentation there, this also gets that cleanup portion that we talked about with the initial one, so it gets us on the right trajectory going forward that we identified the error to. So, and you all may remember the first one you saw will go effective at basically the end of May 25th, I believe, and this one would become effective July 29th. And so if you think of it like a light switch, it's on and then it's off again effectively. The best way I can describe it.
Yep.
Yeah. Essentially, we had to create one to start, and now we have to create one to stop.
Yeah, perfect explanation.
Any questions or discussion from those on commissioners online? All right. With that, I'll look for a motion.
Any public comment?
Did you ask
Oh,
for public?
sorry. Any public? I got so excited. Everybody got up and left except the college students. So, is there any public comment on this item here tonight? You gotta watch it.
They're playing right now.
Yeah.
Probably losing already, too.
Any further discussion from the commission?
I think it's exciting that I've dealt with 2 World Cup items today because I got tickets today, so I'm.
Congratulations.
That's great. I'd make a motion to approve the text amendment, AMDT 26-0010 to Chapter 20 of the Land Development Code of the City of Lawrence, Kansas.
Is there a second? All right. Any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your hands. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. All right. We will move on to miscellaneous new or old business. I would just like to say thank you to all the planners who did tonight's meetings, the clarity of the stuff and some of the, Luke in particular, the stuff that you were able to dive into to direct a lot of our questions. And you had some live links in your to prior things that had happened, city commission agendas that had dealt with some of the items that we saw today, and it was very helpful to have that live link. And sometimes I have to go find that meeting in the city commission, and so I just wanted to say I really appreciated that. Thank you very much.
I want to thank you for running a great meeting, and, it's a tough topic sometimes, and there's emotions, and you did a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank all of you for a great discussion.
I would
appreciate it.
I would like to say, Luke, I particularly thank you for the way you went through the comp plan with the item that you were looking at, and then in a different color, your comments. I thought that was very helpful.
We like colors.
Any other miscellaneous or old or new business from staff? Nothing? Nope. All right. Then I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. We're out of here.
Good meeting.
Yes.
Just a really good meeting.
Those guys came on a good night.